Good morning. Thank you all for coming. A surprising amount of people, considering it's really early. Thank you for coming again, and welcome to my presentation about loading. Well, you'll have to wait a little bit. Let me talk about myself first. I'm Kinnera. I work in Frankfurt at a sustainable mobility company called IoKey. We do mobility solutions for local governments. We do a lot of maps work. We do modularization because we white label for over 70 apps, which is also a very interesting talk I gave a couple of years ago if you want to check it out. I'm also into electronics and 3D printing, so if you're into any of that, please find me after the talk. All right. Let's go back to loading. Well, you've seen this on a lot of apps. And at this point, you're thinking, I got to close the app. I got to restart it. I click on the back button a couple of times. Nothing happens. And then I say, OK, I'm just going to leave the app, right? So when it works. But if nothing's happening, what do? How does the user know how to proceed from that point? That's what this talk is going to be about. It's not about the UI, but the UX. And I believe this is something that we as developers have a responsibility towards. We need to push back towards the UX team because as developers, we know what works and what doesn't as much as they do. We also see this. This is one of the most common things that we see, which is loading with the ... Utterly unexplanative because you don't understand what's happening. This is another one because there's no context to what is loading. You see the linear indicator and then nothing else. So let me first talk about why loading matters, right? Loading is usually an afterthought. You implement all of your features, and then you think, OK, let me just slap on a spinner when it's loading. Let me add a linear indicator or that really annoying loading ... text, right? But these moments are what shape your user's experience of the app. They look at your app, and they don't remember exact points, but they can pinpoint a moment where they were frustrated or they found it really seamless. So that's what you want to focus on. It's one of those things that everyone wants to do, which is why I assume you're all here, but you don't want to spend the time on it, or your product owner doesn't want to spend time on something that isn't exactly necessary. So this talk is going to be about small improvements that you can make that will improve how you look at your app. Sometimes good loading is not about making it shorter. Sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes the device is the device, the network is the network, nothing you can do about it. But you can make the experience smoother. You can reassure the user that progress is happening. You can tell the user what context this loading is happening in. You can always add a spark of personality, make it enjoyable if that's one of the selling points of your app. So let's go to see what kind of scenarios there are. To me, there are 3 types of scenarios. Number 1, you don't really want to do a lot of work, but you want to improve your loading. Number 2, you want to do some really cute animations, but that add the personality, but are also explanatory about why this is loading. Number 3 is when it's a super short loading time, and it's not enough time for a cute animation. Okay? So let's start with reworking what we already have. The first 2 are the ones that we've already seen, right? We've seen the circular indicator and the text indicator. We're not really sure what's happening. Just put them both together. This is the simplest way that you can improve an app. It seems obvious, but this is something we can do, right? Just add a circular progress indicator, slap some text under it, but this time don't use loading. Add what is happening. Tell them, OK, I'm getting some rides for you. What is your API call about? You don't have to give them exact information, but it can be a little bit of a fit, right? You have a linear indicator like this. It has nothing underneath it telling a user what they're loading from. And it's very easy to forget where the user is coming from. So if you have a place, for example, that says add a credit card, right? So you can disable the rest of the screen while you're loading them. So the user knows this is what they're loading, right? They're seeing that this payment method is being added, and they're waiting for it. And this is one of the easiest things to do. You can always just disable what's going on, add an overlay, something really easy, right? OK, so this is the rework, which is the simplest part of this. Let's go to what we can do to make a little cute animation. And this is a real-world example, because this is what my current team is working on. We, this year, thought about trying to make small improvements to our app to make it a little better. So we thought, OK, loading is one of the nicest places to start from. Let's do that. The first a GIF is what we had before, which is a little bit of text and a linear indicator, right? Very simple. I would adding the cancel button is a very important way for the user to leave that state, right? They're looking for a ride. They don't know if it's going to come, and they're used to cab rides, for example, and they don't know if it's going to come, right? They know sometimes there are no cabs available, but you want them to wait for that state, or they want to leave. So you want to provide a cancel button from states that take too much time. So what we changed it to, we wanted something cute, right? So we thought, okay, let us do a really simple animation. Let's see how we can do this. Okay, so we have two movable elements in this animation. Number one is the dotted line that moves backwards. The second one would be the car that kind of has a little movement. You want to make sure the user sees that there's something happening. So the first one would be the X, and then we have the bounce for the car itself, right? So as we add the path effect, we're saying, I mean, all of these are arbitrary values that we came across, and then we asked the UX team to look at what will look good to them. So this is a collaboration between what you can do and what a UX team expects out of the app, right? So this is, again, something that you can talk over, right? It's not something that you have to go to the PO for. It's something that you can do within your team when you have a team day, something like that. This is the thing that we did first. And then most recently, our backend team told us that they're going to take more time to search for rides. Not fun, yes. Not fun for the users. But they were going to give us descriptions of what they're doing while they're taking more time, right? So we're observing Firebase, for example, and it's telling us why it's taking more time. So in this case, the text changes. And we're throttling this text so that we have a couple of seconds for the user to read it. The worst thing would be if a user saw some text and then they missed it. They'd think they missed some important information in your app that they haven't seen. So when you have a really short animation, this would not be the way to go. The reason this works is that it takes a couple of seconds. So what would you do if there was a really short animation? You don't want the user to see text that they haven't read fast enough. And so what do we do then? One of my favorite things to do in these cases is a skeleton screen. So I really like the gray placeholder look. It makes the app feel faster because the user can see that there's something coming on, right? So for example, you see this. The user thinks, OK, there is an image, there is some information coming through, and I can wait for this because they're expecting a certain information. It's much better than a blank screen. The best usage of skeleton screen, in my opinion, would be on a list, right? Because that is a lot more information that you need to show the user. In which case, you would say, OK, you have a list. If you're using Compose, you have your list item, probably more than one, but you have one you like, maybe, right? So you pick that, and then you say, OK, we have this list item. I have an image, and I have a column with a title and a description, for example. Then you can go just change the image to a box. You have a size. You know you do. UX would not let you go ahead without it. And then you add the title and the description, and you have this information about how high your text is in your typography. You have a theme defined. You have a design system, usually. Your text is consistent throughout your app. What this means is you have the exact height of your title and description. This is something you can replicate with just boxes. This is super simple to do as a skeleton list item, and the user feels like there's a list coming, especially when they don't know what is going to happen. This is one of the best ways, I think, that short animations can progress to an extent where the user never feels like they're missing out on something. It's better than a blank screen, right? OK. Then, now that I've talked about the three things that I saying, one is to rework something you've already had. Number two, to have something cute. And number three, skeleton animations. I'm going to talk about a little something if you want to go above and beyond, if you have that time. This is something that I did recently, and I really enjoy how this is giving movement. It's not too much that it feels jarring, but it is also really descriptive about the fact that there is something happening. So how did I do this? Again, we're doing an infinite transition. Our idea is to have these two circles move apart and then come back together, right? So we're offsetting them in two different directions and coming back. So the repeat mode would be reverse because that's what it's doing. And then we are offsetting these every single time. So the first box, we're offsetting in the positive direction, and the second box in the negative direction. So they go apart and together. So when we're doing something like this, it's very easy to customize it throughout your app. You say, I have a grid with so-and-so rows, so-and-so columns. And if it's a small place, you add 2 by 2, 4 by 4, but it remains consistent throughout your app. This is how you make animations feel like your user throughout the app, they're going through the same thing, right? Then, now that we've talked about it, I will like to talk about common mistakes. We can't always avoid these, but when we can, it would be good to. Number one, not descriptive enough. The whole point of loading is to be communicative, for the user to understand that there is something happening, but what is happening is the most important thing. Number two is to be blocking the user completely. Like I showed you in the first screen where, let's see. Here, for example, in this linear indicator, there's absolutely not, the user does not know what's going on. You're blocking the screen, the back button is not working. The only option the user has is to exit the app. You don't want that. So do not block a user from doing anything else. Always have a cancel button if you think it's going to go on long enough. Number three is over-animating. This is something I think we can be a little guilty of when we get into animation, right? Adding something flashy that looks really cool in a demo. It looks really cool when the user looks at it for the first time. And the 10th time, they're annoyed. They're not really wanting to look at your cool animation. They're not as impressed with it as you are. So that's definitely something that we should think about avoiding. Number four, and this is something I'm personally guilty of, is adding time to loading because an animation is cool. When you have a network call, and you have a nice animation, and it's too long. Let's say it's a second, but your network speed is really good, your backend is great, your API works really fast, and you get the result back in maybe half a second. So the user sees a really abrupt animation stop halfway through the screen, and you're really tempted to say, let me add a delay of a certain time, or just fix my loading time to 1 second. You're not giving the user the best experience you can in that case. And I think that's something we need to keep in mind. In that case, you do not need that cute animation. You can add it someplace else, put it on your personal project, but do not add it to the app, right? Check how long loading takes. If your loading takes longer than your animation, perfect. It can repeat. Repeatable animations are the best way to do loading. But if your loading is shorter than your animation, skip it. All right. This is all the mistakes that I said, but to talk about what is important. Number one, short and subtle. Like I said, keep them as short as possible. Keep them as subtle as possible because users don't always appreciate in your face. Unless your app is entirely colorful, you don't want to add a colorful animation suddenly popping up in their faces. It breaks their flow of the app, right? Keep it subtle. Really consult your UX team before you even get near production. Number two, use waiting as a chance to communicate. What you need to research before you do these loading animations is to check where your users are. Are they in an urban area? Are they getting really wonderful internet and really fast API results? Are they in a rural area? Are they looking at this offline? Do they have to wait a long time? Are you handling those cases? And make sure that you test them in these conditions. When you look at an emulator, always check your loading when your network is bad, for example, on devices that are not the Google Pixel, which works great. So you also want to check them on devices that your users actually use, especially with Android. They're users using devices that are really inexpensive, for example, that don't work as well or take a longer time for loading or things that you don't expect. So you want to test on those apps and in network conditions that you do not expect. As developers, we feel like these apps are home, right? We know which broken floorboard to step across. We know which china plate with cracks to avoid, but the user does not know these things. they go a step exactly in that broken floorboard. They pick up the china plate with the cracks. And these are the things you see when you go on Sentry, when you go on, you find all of your errors in these places. But the idea is to find them before your user does, right? Number 3 would be add content descriptions. Accessibility is important. All of these animations are very cool, but when there's a user who cannot appreciate, don't see those animations, you want to make sure they still know what's happening, which means that if you don't have text in your animation, add them to the content description. Then with Compose, I mean, in XML, animations were a little bit harder, but with Compose, the bar has come down a little bit. So when you make loading feel smooth for users, also make it simple for you, right? If you have something that remains consistent to the app, you have a composable, maybe in a module that you already have composables in, and then you can directly plug in into the rest of your app, right? That's a great way to add to a design system. Number 4, again, kind of a continuation of that, is to experiment with what works for your app, right? Personality should not slow you down. Adding cute animations is great, but this personality should not slow down what already works on your app, right? Look for recurring motifs. Like for us, as I showed you, we have a little shuttle that we see all throughout the app. These shuttles are customized for white label apps. They're also customized to the client. So they see their own shuttle kind of showing up on this loading screen. There are these little touches that make it special. So look for these recurring motifs that I'm sure you have throughout your app. You can always ask your UX team for something like this. Again, if an animation takes longer than your actual loading, it's a problem, right? No extra loading time. If a user can't see it because it's too fast, skip it. And if your users are waiting, let them know why they're waiting and what they're waiting for. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for listening.